What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Social Standard Podcast. My guest today is Robin Nissim. She is the founder of Social Proof Agency and a social media expert. So Robin has helped build social teams and communities for companies like Alo, Ulta Beauty, Anastasia of Beverly Hills, Pepsi, Mattel, and more. So today we are going to get into all of the excellent ways that you can help set up your social strategy, social media teams for success. So Robin, what's up and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yes, me too. I think I'm really excited for you to share some of the tips that you have gleaned over your very interesting career as a social media sort of expert. It's just, to me, it's so interesting how you've done things in beauty, in kind of health and wellness, in CPG, a whole bunch of different areas, which is why I think your expertise is going to be so relevant to our audience. It doesn't really matter what industry sector you're in.
Right.
I think you're going to have some great information to share. And with 2024 right around the corner, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at how do you reevaluate what you're doing with your social team, or perhaps you're even building a social media team from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to start with today specifically for you is thinking about that, right? I think a lot of social teams are set up to do a lot of different things, right? They have pressure to generate content, to help drive revenue, to support product launches, provide customer service, build a community, go viral, all of these things. So when you come into a company, what's the first thing you look at when you are assessing their social media team and their strategy?
So beyond what's obvious, which is their external social media presence, I really like to look at their internal resources, right? What does your staffing look like? Are you setting social media up for success by making sure that they have the same resources that your brand marketing team does, that your creative team does, that performance marketing does? Are they connected with customer service so they can be working together in terms of community management? A lot of brands are still at the point where they're relying on one person to execute social. And in those situations, it's the most important that that social media manager is plugged in far and wide across the org, and that the whole org is thinking social first so they can help that person instead of constantly reinventing the wheel. For example, taking an email that performed really well and breaking down that email into social content. So it lessens the load on that one social media manager. However, at bigger brands like Alo or Anastasia, you have a full team, right? And when you do have that full team, that team needs to be resourced, appropriately. Do they have the right platforms that are helping them with content management? Is there an influencer team, or are they doing influencer marketing themselves? All of these things, is what I take into consideration when I'm looking internally at an org's resources.
And what do you think, just even to kind of step back a little bit, what do you think the appropriate size is for a social media team? Like Alo's a great one. Obviously, Ulta, Anastasia, all these people have had gangbuster social media presences. Like, what is the typical size that you're seeing?
For every company that I've worked with, there's been a manager per platform, or at least a half of a person on a platform.
Sure.
So maybe two people are tackling Instagram, and then one owns Twitter. One, it was Twitter, and I don't work with anyone who uses X at all now.
Yep. Same.
But so it's going to depend. I think if you can even get an intern, if you have a one-person team, more is more, because social media is truthfully the biggest platform for your brand. It has the most eyeballs. It's always on. There's no, it went to junk, it got deleted, the person didn't open. Someone's going to see it, and someone's always going to be able to come back to it. So it does need to be resourced more heavily. So I would say in a dream world, you have a VP of social media or a director of social media, and that person's job is to essentially manage up so that their social team can execute without any bottlenecks or stopgaps.
So they're blocking. They're literally running
Exactly.
through and like blocking for the social team. So when those platform managers need something, can do something, they have the ability to be heads down, focus specifically on their platform and making it the best that it can be.
That's the exact job. Yeah, I think that's first and
Okay.
foremost paramount. And
Sure.
then a manager, maybe a coordinator, maybe, depending on the size of your budget
Sure.
and your KPIs, how far and wide you're allowed to go with staffing. More
Sure.
is more, but definitely.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, right? I mean, it's like, of course, if you can do all the things, you do all the things. But I think so many brands um, don't have the ability. Maybe they don't have the resources, or
Right.
maybe they don't have the ability to properly communicate up the ladder as to why they need these resources. So to me, is it that senior social, the VP of social strategy, like that person, I would assume then is the right one to go to the table and defend the social team on where they need to be, why they need these resources, and all of that. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And so those guys, like how have you seen a certain people in your space do that effectively, or how have you been able to effectively be that voice for the social media managers?
So the way that I approach social at every new org that I join is getting a meeting with a department head on the calendar. And it's more or less like you're reliving your interview process, right? With every single department head. And it's kind of
Okay.
funny because the truth is everyone has their own social media, and so everyone has opinions about social media and this almost inflated sense of knowing of how and what should be done on social. And so my most effective strategy is going in, meeting with each department head and getting their point of view on what do you think about social, what's working well, what's not working, really giving them that space to
Okay.
have their feelings and share their opinions, and then to share your strategy and your plan of attack and getting buy-in off the jump, right? And then furthermore, finding ways for your team to partner, whether it's monthly, bi-monthly, weekly, down the line, to create that social first approach from your brand. So obviously teams like product, you're probably going to meet with once a quarter, but it's important to understand what are the key differentiators on this jacket when there's a market selling a million jackets. Maybe there's a secret pocket on the inside, and that's really the thing that's gonna, get someone to buy with your brand versus someone else. You need to be talking about that on social. You need to be highlighting those differentiators. Same thing with customer service. I've been super successful with plugging customer service into social media to help with community management. And also, especially around this time of year when holiday turns into a bit of a war zone on social, when people's, gifts are not coming on time or packages are lost, they take to social media. And so arming the customer service team with logins and having those bi-weekly meetings. Okay, what are you seeing the most? What is trending in the comments, so that you can proactively get ahead of it on social and create content to address that, so that you're not seeing that anymore in the comments.
Yeah.
Influencer team is a team we partner with if social doesn't own influencer weekly, like multiple times a week, right? Because the two go hand in hand together.
I was going to say, are there companies that have influencer not under social? That seems crazy to me.
You'd be surprised. I don't want to put any brands on blast on here,
Sure.
but actually, I'm working with a company that has influencer under creative and social is under brand. And it's a really unique setup.
Okay. Well, and
Yeah.
maybe it works for them, right? I mean, I think that's sort of what, to me, it makes sense. You can do it however you want to do it. However you think it works for your brands, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think what you're communicating is these are the standard ways that you've seen success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I'm hearing from you is that it really comes down to strategy.
Yes.
Right? It's, if you have a social media plan, you're proactive versus reactive. And I think what I see so many times is social being reactive, being forced to be reactive, I should say, because they aren't maybe in those conversations with the digital marketing or the creatives from the jump, right? And so you kind of get passed down the campaign And at that point, there's not a lot that you can really, I don't want to say there's not a lot you can do with it, because of course there is. But, what's the appropriate point for social to be involved in conversations? I know a lot of people say the earlier the better. I don't know that I buy in on that 100%.
Yeah.
If you're a social first brand, like if you started in social, yeah, of course, then that makes sense. But if you are a big brand like Alo, for example, more than likely you've got some very senior folks figuring out the overall brand and company-wide strategy, which I think in order to create an effective social strategy, you need first. Right? It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like where do these senior social people, where do these social teams get involved? And like at what point is the most successful point to bring someone in?
So I have a lot of thoughts. Number one, I think generally social does need to be involved off the jump of any idea, because the social media team is the digital version of your retail team. They're interfacing
But
with
when you say idea, or do you mean like the campaign idea? You're talking about like campaign level, right?
Campaign level. So let's get really tactical. We have, let's say, we're strategizing for a spring event and we just got the idea approved. We know we're going to execute something around spring. Now let's bring in social team to hear, okay, around this time of year, what are customers asking for? Or what are you seeing on social media that will allow this spring campaign event resonate with your customers on social media? As opposed to saying, okay, guys, it's spring and in 5 days, we're going to have you execute this thing. It's like, wait, that's not how social works. Like there's a runway. We need to tease an idea. I mean, and maybe not every strategy has a tease, but this is just an example. Like let's let the audience know something is coming, right? You got to warm them up to get them ready to receive and get their buy-in. It's not like this on and off switch where you can just post something. And listen, you can just post something, but I should be more specific. If you want to be successful, you want to warm your audience up and get them ready for this big event, as opposed to just nonchalantly posting it and hoping that someone saw it.
Yes, 100%. And I think that helps too in this day and age where you don't know if people are seeing something. You need them to seek it out.
Or seeing it on time. I can't tell you how often I see things on social media that I'm like, oh, I want to do this. And I'm like, oh, wait, this already happened,
Yes.
And so
exactly same.
There's a huge strategy around letting your audience know something is coming, right? Getting them their buy-in, getting them to tell their friends, right? And then executing in that appropriate amount of time. There's even strategies of like, oh, we'll see this a lot with Black Friday, I'm sure. Like, oh, we've extended an extra day on our sale for anyone who missed it. But that's not just a tactic that can be used over Black Friday. So
that makes a lot of sense. So I think if I'm understanding this correctly, in an ideal world, you would have, okay, we're approaching 2024, right? So 2024 is, okay, company, senior execs, they set the strategy for what is the goal for the year. That's going to trickle down into campaign style events. Now, once you have these sort of tentpole events or your quarters prepared, that's when social media would need to come in to say, okay, we know that in 1 month we're doing this, in 6 weeks we're doing this, 8 weeks here, 12 weeks here. And then you guys can start to formulate the best way to notify the audience and the community of what's going on at the brand, what to expect. If it's a product launch, if it's an event, if it's some sort of special community engagement, a giveaway, whatever it is. So that's the sort of order of operations, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yes, absolutely. And I think in organizations that have that VP level social media, person or a director, the director is able to sit in those larger meetings while their team is down, executing day to day. And just allowing social to sit at the table, having that senior level presence lets you know, oh, this is not something that's going to resonate with the community. Like maybe, we can post about it on social, but this is not something where we go far and wide on social, as opposed to saying, yes, this is going to hit. We want to make this a big moment on social. And so just to take it back, that's where there's value in having someone at a senior level decide like what's a moment on social versus what isn't. And that's kind of really the art of social media, right? Is deciding what internally is happening at your company, you decide to flash externally to your customers.
Oh, I love that. The flashing externally to customers. Yes, 100%. I think that's so right. And I just do think it's important because I know, like, one of the things that I see all the time that I know other social media managers are seeing a lot is, as common vernacular on social is talking about social media managers not getting enough respect. Like, they have all these great ideas. No one wants to listen. And I do think that that's definitely an issue. But I also think that you have to kind of step back and mirror that with like, that's great, but also you don't have 15 years experience of strategy running businesses. And so that's not a knock on anyone. It's just the reality, right? If you're younger in if you're earlier in your career, that's just how it is. And I think you need the marriage of like, what's hot, what's happening, what's good, with how does that align, and like, how does that align and ladder up to what the business's overall goals are for the year? Because it might be fun to go out and do this fun social media trend, but if it's not serving you as a business, it doesn't actually make any sense, right? Anyone, I don't want to say anyone can create viral content because that's also not true. Anyone can create fun social content for social media. I think that the expertise comes when you can do that for a brand targeted to your audience.
Absolutely. And I think, I was just thinking, I want to make a joke. This is not a campaign for everyone to have, a VP of social, but
totally,
there really is value.
I think it is. I really think it is.
Okay, fine. It is the joke's out. The gig is up. But the value is, right, when you have someone at my level running social, my teams have always produced content and been working 2 weeks to a month down the line. And I think that's the difference between someone who's in the weeds day to day doing it, posting, and they don't have a plan through the rest of the week. Whereas when you have senior level leadership, you have a plan a month out, 3 months out, 6 months out, and your team, when they're working that far ahead in advance with an evergreen content strategy, is then able to be, really adaptable and agile and say, hey, this thing in the market just came up. Let's ditch our regular Wednesday content and let's jump on this trend that is effective for the business. Yes. Right. And then, at Alo, my team was great about like, hey, so-and-so always is tagging the brand. We see that she's going on her bachelorette. She has a yoga instructor. Like, they're talking about it online. We should just send them a bunch of mats and have Alo content, at so-and-so's bachelorette. I'm like, yes, do it. Great. Like these are the kind of ideas that you want to empower your social team to have and be able to sign off. But a lot of the time, if your social media team isn't resourced appropriately and doesn't have the ability to work that far out, they're not going to be able to jump on trends and do things, these like sprinkle moments, I like to call them, because they're going to be too bogged down trying to tread water.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's where you see the burnout coming through so strongly with social media, right? Is when you don't have a plan and you constantly show up every day and it's chaos and you're trying to create under all this pressure. Naturally, I think anyone would kind of crumble under that and say, you know what, enough is enough here. Like, we can't do this. But when you do have a strategy, it's just like influencer marketing. When people come to us and say, okay, we want to work with influencers, what's the best way to do that? Let's just give them total creative freedom, whatever you want to do. I say, oh, hold on. No.
Yeah.
That's a very bad idea. I know it sounds wonderful, but true creatives like to create in a box. What helps them create and be the most creative is if you kind of put the structure up.
Yes.
Of like, here's the box that I want you to play in. And it doesn't need to be teeny tiny and it doesn't need to be colossal. Right. But we can come up with really good ideas when we're challenged, right? I mean, inspiration is most of the, they say like 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration is like success, right? But it's the same thing with this. You've got to allow people freedom, but you need freedom within the confines of what makes sense. So to me, that's the best way to do anything, let alone influencer or social media strategy. Or anything really.
Right. And I think that's what allows you to remain consistent, right? Knowing, okay, every Monday to Sunday, we talk about the same thing in a different way, week over week. It's beneficial for you as a brand because it provides structure. It's beneficial for your audience because they're getting the same message consistently. It's beneficial for influencers because they know, okay, this is what success will look like, as opposed to having the stress of coming up with something wild and crazy. Not everyone works that way, you know? So I completely agree with you.
And I think that to me is why we're seeing so many of these fun moments on social media right now. I think the most recent one was the Stanley Cup one.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Where the influencer, so for those of you who didn't see this somehow, this creator, I'll call her creator, I don't think she's totally an influencer, posted about, unfortunately, her car somehow caught fire. Everyone was fine, thank goodness. But she posted a video after the fact of her burnt car, and she grabs the Stanley Cup. She shakes it. There's still ice in the Stanley Cup. Okay. What a crazy moment. So whoever the social media team and manager is that heard that, shout out to them. They clearly put this into the flywheel of like, when these moments happen, here's what we do.
Right.
And Stanley clearly had a great sort of process to figure this out. From what I've seen, I think part of it was some of their agency that they worked with. So to me, that's a combination of social listening, effective social media management, and then the strategy or the plan of if and when something like this happens, here's what we do.
Right.
They were able to execute it quickly, pretty flawlessly, in my opinion. And we'll see where it ultimately shakes out. But there's a lot of good press around this as well.
Absolutely. And I definitely want to draw attention to the fact that because Stanley did have a big year on social media, they had that brand awareness too. And I saw the original TikTok video from the creator. And if you looked at the comments, excuse me.
Sure. Yeah.
If you looked at the comment section, literally everyone is like tagging Stanley. It's like at Stanley, the best free marketing you'll ever have. And so I think that definitely played into it as well, right? Is having a presence online, letting people know who you are and what your core values are. Their core values, their promise is we can endure anything. And I mean, a horrible situation for someone ended up being the best thing that ever happened for your brand. You know, you just can't plan that. But if Stanley wasn't invested in social media and they hadn't grown brand awareness and community online, I don't know that it would have had the same results. Like if it was just a regular, but she had a Stanley, they have a unique look, and she called out the brand. So it was kind of magical, unfortunate and magical all at once.
Well, yes. But I mean, I think, at the end of the day, it sounds like she's going to get a new car from Stanley. So, it kind of worked out for everyone, really.
Yeah.
If you can call it that. So
I loved his video too. He's like, this is the first time we're doing this and probably the last. Did you see his video?
Yeah, so I think it's probably wise though to make those
right. Like don't go burning down your cars.
Yeah, exactly. Stanley's not going to just give out cars to people who have these situations. So yeah, no, I think that's probably pretty smart to disclose that is the strategy. So when you think about, okay, so you come in, we say, okay, we need help here. Robin's coming in. She has now had a meeting with all the department heads. She understands kind of where buy-in is, where it's weak. She understands that she has these 4 social media managers dedicated to each platform. What is your next step in setting the strategy, and how are you going to set yourself up to measure if you were successful?
Yes, love this question. Okay, so measuring success is an interesting thing, right? Because I want to make sure that my team's output is successful and that we're working like a well-oiled machine. And so ultimately, I will set a goal to get to a place of where we're producing content a week out, 2 weeks out, ultimately 4 weeks out. And once my team is able to plan a month out in advance, to me, we are now effectively a well-oiled machine. Also, in terms of metrics, I want to make sure that we're growing, right? Is our audience growing? Is our engagement month over month going up? I don't really care if we have bad performance on several posts throughout a month. If I'm posting 60 times in a month and 10 posts don't perform, great. We just learned what's not performing. But are we trending upward month over month? And then, of course, I want to understand, are we getting influencers who want to work with us? Are people reaching out? Is there engagement from our community? That's another thing that I look at as well. I think if you're producing social content the right way, people will want to produce content for your brand. And that's kind of like an unspoken KPI that I like to.
You're talking about UGC.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. So like in the DMs, are people requesting to work with us? Are people coming to us with ideas? Are they asking for product? Similarly, how often are we getting tagged by creators that aren't even on our radar? And then of course you want to look at revenue. But I do think that revenue is not even something that you should put pressure on or be looking at until you've had a strategy rolled out for at least 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's wise because the reality is, and we see it all the time, like I know this happens for me as a consumer, the first time an influencer posts about something, it's an awareness play. You're just getting on my radar. I'm not going to buy it right then, most likely. Right. Once I've heard about it from that influencer, maybe over the course of 3 or 4 months, or I've heard other influencers chime in, it feels like something that people are talking about. I feel more educated. I'm more interested. And at some point I'm going to turn around and buy it.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think that's right. I think that the sales cycle on social has elongated.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely has.
The social sales cycle is so much longer than it used to be, right? And even, obviously a lot of that depends on what the cost is of the product, right? Someone may see something, like I think that's why we've seen so much success with Amazon products, because it's like, oh, it's $20. It's a cheap little something. If it doesn't work out, who cares?
Yeah.
But like if you're selling $300 luggage, we kind of want to know, right? Like I was just looking at these rebounders. I don't know if you know what a rebounder is, but it's all over my social media. They're these small trampolines, adult trampolines. But they have these like bounce classes and like all these things. It's a really good, supposedly a very good exercise.
Sounds so fun.
Yeah. And so my kids have a trampoline, and whenever I jump on it with them, I'm exhausted. So I was like, maybe I should be doing this a little bit more often. But it's something that I have been interested in. And I've actually been looking at content now on social media to influence my buying decisions.
Yes.
I know I have a coupon code from a certain influencer. I know I'm going to be using it. It's maybe not today, maybe it's in 2 weeks, but I know it's going to happen. So that's it's a more expensive. It's $350, I think. So that's not a decision that personally I take lightly.
Right.
Whereas the other day on TikTok, I bought some Tarte mascara because I looked at like a review of someone doing it, and I was like, this looks pretty cool. It's $15. We'll just do it.
Right.
Like if I hate it, who cares?
Right. Absolutely. And I think that is the power of social media. And I think that brands should really understand that, right? What are the stocking stuffers? What are the quick stop the thumb purchase versus where do I really need to educate consumers? Like I said, the inner details of the jacket. Maybe there's a lining where it's not just luxe on the outside, it's also luxe on the inside. Let's talk about that to help validate this purchase. And then taking it a step further, when we seed to influencers, let's make sure that they absolutely talk about the inside lining that makes this so unique and different to every other brand.
Yes. Exactly. And I think you just segued really naturally into like, okay, so influencers are clearly going to be a part of any effective social media strategy. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit, I know you did a lot at Ulta as well, but tell me a little bit about how you like to leverage influencers to help your social team hit their goals and be successful.
Yeah. So I've seen since 2018 influencer content outperforming branded content. You need branded content because you need to own your brand voice, but influencers equals social proof, and people are going to trust them more than you always. So asking them to showcase your product, how they use it, not giving too many guardrails outside of let's make sure that the logo is facing forward. And I don't want you to use our product with our competitor, in the same video. Like, please keep those separate, but let's just see how you use it. And tell me your favorite thing about it. If it's a beauty product, tell me how it feels on your skin. Tell me how it smells. What do you like about it, from before and after? Or if it's a jacket, show me how you style it. Do you wear it in the morning or do you wear it at night? How do you do those two things differently? Asking questions that are going to allow them to be creative and do their own thing, but that will also have a payoff to your consumer. So we all know, right? Like oh, I love the way that she styled that jacket to just after her workout. That was so easy. And she took a very, transitional approach from studio to street. I want to do that
Hmm.
because I don't always get the chance to go home and shower and get ready. I just want to go straight to brunch with my friends.
Yes, who doesn't?
Exactly. So asking influencers to help support what you're trying to leverage in your marketing play,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
is the
I
way to do
love
it.
that. And actually, you're probably a master at AI prompting, right? Because that's effectively like what you're doing, right? Is you're prompting the influencer, you're kind of leading them down a path that you want them to take, but you're giving them full ability to make it their own, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, AI prompting is definitely, there was a learning curve there. And now I just have a notepad where I like have my
Yes.
prompts saved and I'll drop them in.
Yeah, which is great. But I mean, I think that's like the way that you lay that out. I love asking them questions. I think that so
Yes.
often brands tell influencers what to think
Hmm.
about a product, right? Like, or they just tell them it's like a one-way street. What you've just sort of elevated is making it a two-way street, looking for feedback, kind of
Right.
showing, like guiding them gently down the direction of what makes sense for your brand,
Hmm.
but allowing them, again, the creative freedom to do it in their own voice in a way that makes sense because maybe it's the transition from workout to brunch. Maybe it is like I'm at work, but I need to kind of spice this up before I go out and meet for
Yeah.
drinks, or whatever it ultimately is. Um, I love that reframing. I love your point of view on that. I think that's really smart.
And something that I've seen in house so often is, brand builders saying, this is how it is, this is how it is, and we need to teach them this. It's like, that's not always the case. There's not a one size fits all for everything. And, we're seeing people use those like picture frame, like stands almost to like
Yes.
hold up their iPads. And so it's like, that you don't want to stop your consumers from using your product in 10 different ways. You don't want to have them only do it one way,
Right.
So by allowing that creativity is just going to bring more expansive use to your brand.
Yes. And I like that actually for like social listening and UGC. To me, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of, to tie it back into social strategy, it's like, great, this is what we had built the product for. This is what we're marketing it as. But by the way, there are like 1,000 people on Instagram who have created this hack on
Right.
how to use our product differently. Like lean into that.
Lean
Don't
into
pull away
it.
from it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You should lean into it. As long as it's safe and like, all those sort of things.
Yeah.
It's just a good opportunity to allow your customers to be stewards of your brand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's see. What else do I have for you here? I wanted to. I think there's probably just one overarching question that I still feel like I would love some clarity in. Are there any? I hate to say tactics because that feels like manipulative, but are there any ways that you have been able to um, take a management team, a senior team that
Mm-hmm.
is not fully invested in the power of social media? Have you been able to change their mind or persuade them to give you a chance? Like, how have you, if that's been something you've done, how have you been able to effectively do that?
Well,
Or how would you guide someone to effectively do that?
at the very start of my career, I actually took both brands, Michelin and Nissan, online and opened their social channels. Um, and ever since then, I've kind of just found myself at brands that were all in on social. But
Sure.
in those beginning stages, I absolutely had to sell in the idea of social media and explain to them the difference between a tweet and an Instagram static image because video didn't exist then.
Sure.
And I just built a little PowerPoint presentation that showed like, look, these are the numbers. These are the stats. This is how many people are here. This is the demographic. This is what you're looking for. And now this is how we will do it. So creating
Sure.
sample content, showing that strategy, ensuring that we have a plan for every single thing that could possibly go wrong, right? Like literally creating a flow chart.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful, especially to do that then. And even now, it seems like there's so many examples of so many brands doing things really well that
Mhm.
I think it would be easier to say, hey, look at our competitors doing X, Y, and Z.
Right.
If we look at how that maps to our goals and our social, here's how they were able to like, here's how I think they've been able to hit their goals.
Right.
Here's how other people are doing it. I just think those like showing people, like educating people, right? It's really just an education process of like, how do you do this? And I do think that sometimes, you know, brands who hire, you know, even big brands that we work with for influencer marketing have still very small social media teams. And I still see enterprise level brands having trouble justifying some of the things that they do. And so many times we end up trying to help them justify for those budgets, right? I don't know. It's just it's a wild world to me because we've made such big
advancements.
Advancements, thank you, in this space. But at the same time, we still have people questioning the value of things. And to 100%. Me, and I don't know if you agree with this, but like, I think that a big reason why we're seeing so much pressure on social media teams with such limited resources is we're in this transition phase where it's like digital marketing was one way with social media as this tiny little corner of things. And that's really switching, right? I mean, search is, you don't say search is dead because it's not.
But it's down compared to social.
Yes, exactly. Search is down. I mean, traditional ad spend is growing at a much slower rate than influencer marketing is. You know, that obviously all ties back in with social media. We're just starting to see social media, I think, become just a big part of digital marketing. And because of that, I think people are still kind of confused because they don't necessarily maybe totally understand it. They're a little scared of it, but they know they need to be there. And so they just hire someone who knows social, but they don't put any strategy behind it.
Right.
It's like, guys, in order to be successful with anything, we have to have strategy. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if you agree, disagree.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that we've seen a complete 180 in media and consumption. If you had asked me 13 years ago when I was like, listen, guys, like I believe in social, I'm a millennial. If you want to reach me, this is how we do it, that we would end up here. Like, I don't think any of us predicted this. But we're here and I'm blown away constantly by the amount of brands that I connect with that just to this day are like, well, we don't think our customer is using social media for this. And I'm like, off the top of my head, I can think of 10 ways your customer is using social media and how you can be there. And I think it is really wild because there are people who are leaning in so heavily, and brands like Alo, where I took social to 5% of business revenue monthly,
which is wild,
just organic, you know, there's such an opportunity there. And then there are brands who are like, I'm not sure that my customer's there. It's like, no, your customer is there. You just need to meet them where they are. And you nailed it. There's so much education to be done, right? Teaching people about social, how to effectively doing it. It is a long haul. It takes time. It's an investment in time and money because, like you said, content is now king. And when we think about all those other channels, the way that everything is shifted, content has also changed. So your website is not going to work the way that it worked 10 years ago because you now need to have video content to get people to buy in. They don't just believe that your static image isn't of a model with, you know, clips on the back of her outfit, making sure that it fits right. She wants to see the model doing a 360 so I can see, oh, this actually does fit right. So it all goes hand in hand with what you were saying. Digital and social are married. Social media started out as a completely brand awareness play, but over the years, it's turned into a monetization, money-making play. You can track revenue and you can track clicks. And so social does need to be working hand in hand with digital.
Yeah, I totally agree. So how did you track clicks and revenue when you were at Alo?
So we had a fantastic, really robust e-com team, and they basically helped set us up with their entire system. And we had a little Excel spreadsheet where we would just put in UTM parameters and it would spit out basically links for us. And all of that went into Google Analytics. So it was really easy for social because they did most of our reporting for us, like the heavy hitting reporting. And all we had to do was be like, this is what works. this didn't work, and then look at, what matched up with revenue
Yeah.
versus what didn't based off of dates and type of content
Sure.
and our unique parameters. It was massive. It was so great.
Yeah, well, it's important. I mean, especially a brand like Aloe, of course, people are looking online for a lot of that content. So
Mhm.
yeah, and it's only going to be more interesting as we kind of continue to push into this like social shopping, like platforms having shops, people getting a little bit more comfortable with that, and then
Yeah,
live streaming.
absolutely.
A lot of that stuff, I think, there's a big pushes for live stream shopping to come to the US the way that it has in China. I do think that we are going to get there. I still think we're pretty far out, to be totally honest.
Well, I actually saw on TikTok the other night, I don't know if you are a big TikTok consumer, but
Of course.
yeah, it pulls you into a live every few, scrolls. And there was a guy literally doing live shopping, showing all of his items that are in his TikTok shop. And I literally had the thought of like, oh wow, it's here. Like the thing we've been hearing about for years is now making its way to the US market. This guy is just pioneering it.
TikTok will make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's making, that's exactly what they do in over in China. And I think that it's been so lucrative over there that what's so interesting is ByteDance has the, not only do they have the understanding of the trend,
Right.
they have benefited from it financially. Right. And so I think that just puts a little bit more, puts their feet to the fire a little bit more on trying to make it happen in the US. And I do think that we're getting closer. But I actually think TikTok's definitely making the move. But for me, on Instagram, when people do live videos and then save them down, so I can watch them on my own time, like absolutely, I'm going to be buying stuff based on that. So that's just sort of the stepping stone, in my opinion, to live shopping. But doing anything live, in the US is tough, right? Sports are really kind of the only thing that has been able to figure that one out. But look at people, live streaming Taylor Swift concerts, right? And then people go on and find them. Like if Taylor was able to put her merchandise in there, or direct link to like buy XYZ, like that would be a boon, I think.
Yeah, we're on our way there. I agree with you that it's not here at the mass scale yet, but even just the way that people spend time on lives on TikTok, personally, I don't understand it, but again, when I'm scrolling, I'll watch, someone from Gen Z or Gen Alpha just sitting there doing their homework or whatever, like on live stream. And I'm like,
look, I think you could draw the parallel from like unboxing for like millennial. Millennials. It's like people just love to watch an unboxing. Like, I don't understand that either personally.
Right.
But I would also say, call out to all of the people who are listening who are not a Gen Z or young millennial. You don't have to understand something fully to know that you need to be doing it.
Absolutely. Co-sign that.
Right? That's lean in on your like younger consumers, the people on your team who do live and breathe that particular trend, their lives on social, whatever it is. They're going to know how to make it right. You just have to help them make it be a right fit for your brand.
Right. And you have to help, clear the path so that they can do it.
Yes, exactly. I love that. I love that, clearing the path for the social team. I think that's, I really think that's so smart. And even, as I was doing my research for this podcast, one of the things that kind of came up for me was, obviously we all love Duolingo. We love the owl. We love the young woman who does that social media over there. She's killer. But one of the things that we had talked about internally was like, hey, even though she's like basically the leading expert in how to do all of this stuff, she still had somebody be hired above her.
Right.
And I think a lot of people that I saw on TikTok were like, oh, I can't believe this. Why wouldn't they just promote her? And I think the reality is like, she's awesome at what she's doing. So when I kind of layer that in with your messaging, you're like, that person was probably brought on to get people out of her way.
Right.
So she can do what she does best.
Right.
And she's not burdened with a lot of extra nonsense that comes when you're a manager, to be quite
100%.
Quite honest.
Yeah. Having revenue goals, dealing with, interpersonal issues across the team, fostering people's careers, helping them grow. That takes a lot of the creative energy out of you.
A lot of time and a lot of energy. Oh yeah. It takes a lot of energy out of anyone for sure. There's no doubt. All right, cool. Well, look, that was super interesting. I hope that for our audience, that gives some insights into like how to set your social team up for real success. And Robin, before we go, I want to just do some fun rapid fire questions.
Okay.
We'll see off the cuff what you have to say about some of these. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Okay. Which brand has the most enviable social team setup right now?
Oh, that's a good question. I Maybe I don't know about setups, but what I'm loving
Sure.
online is Crocs. Like I feel like they've had such a year, and for me, I've never been a Crocs like fan or consumer, and
Sure.
they've got me turning my head, and so that says something.
100%. Me as well. I just spent $50 on a pair of Minnie Mouse Crocs for my daughter. So
Oh,
yes, and that's like why are we doing this? But 100% Crocs are cool, and I'm in. So they've
yeah.
done a great
They
job.
changed
I
my
totally agree.
opinion.
Good for them. That's what it's all about. So,
Yeah.
okay. What is your favorite social media trend right now?
Ooh, I don't have one. I don't have one. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not like right now I don't think that trends are I'm not like leaning into any trend, but I am kind of like obsessed with the Travis and Taylor phenomenon.
Yes.
Like
Yes. That
maybe
pop
that is a
culture.
trend.
Yes. It feels it maybe it's not like a trend, but it's very relevant in
Well,
pop culture. And
here's
I think you see a lot of social media teams leaning in cool
yeah.
ways. So that trend I'm on board with 100%.
It's fascinating because I'm not a Swiftie and I'm not a sports girl either. So like the fact that it has
Okay.
my attention, I'm like, oh wow, like something's happening here. Maybe it's just the love story that I'm into, but that has my attention
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, I think it has the majority of the US's and probably international attention as well too. I honestly can't get enough of it either. When Travis was at her show
Oh,
in South America
so
somewhere,
sweet.
and they did the whole like the Karma song with the guy on the
Yeah.
Chiefs coming straight home to me. I was like, oh no, this is, and then they show his reaction. I mean, just
It's so
I
good.
don't know if this is like planned at all or like how much it's planned, but I don't care.
How
It's
could
good,
we ever know?
right?
Listen, yes, exactly. It's the love story we didn't know we needed. We just got to be
Yes,
grateful.
exactly.
We got to be grateful that we get
Exactly.
it.
I love it. Okay, last question for you. Shorts, Reels, TikTok. Rank what is best for influencer campaigns right now.
TikTok. TikTok is number
TikTok.
one. I think Reels, I'm going to say, is number two and Shorts number three. And the reason why is because I think TikTok is the platform for the people, by the people. I don't think that brands outside of like Duolingo, which is like the
Sure.
1%, if you will, of brands on TikTok, brands are not like killing it on TikTok. They still don't understand that it's like for the people, by the people. So that's why I think influencer content is best served for TikTok. I'm choosing Reels second because I know Instagram is investing so heavily into Reels. They just put out A/B testing, and as a consumer, my Reels feed has actually gotten better. And
Couldn't agree
Shorts,
more.
yeah, I spend the least amount of time on YouTube, so maybe it's a generational thing, but that's
I think it's a generational. I also think it's a little bit of a gender thing as well. To me, it seems like in the millennial world, YouTube feels a little bit more male heavy than female heavy.
that's fair.
But I do think that Shorts is coming.
Yeah.
And I think, I always say never sleep on YouTube. Those guys are the masters of so much, especially because they probably have the best search infrastructure built in.
Yeah.
Obviously being owned by, Alphabet, Google. They have a lot. I think they have just a lot of tools in their belt, and I think that they're coming for it.
Yeah.
So that may be a little bit more in the B2B side, but I know my husband is not on TikTok. He sure as shit is on YouTube. And I tell you this, the shorts, they suck him in. So it's there, but like I said, know your audience, know where they're at, repurpose content. Those are just sort of the names of the games.
Yeah.
And lots of cool stuff coming, I think, our way in 2024. And Robin, I really appreciate you sharing all of your tips and tricks on how to set social teams up for success. This was a great conversation. And if you are on social media, which everyone is, if you're on LinkedIn, check out Robin. I will link her below, but she's doing some really fun stuff on her LinkedIn account. And if you want to know what the proof is for her, for me at least, the proof is in the pudding with Robin, because she has less followers than I do, and her engagement is like outrageous.
Oh, thank you.
So I always think that's a tip my hat to you for figuring out your community and your audience. And I think it is wonderful to see somebody drinking their own Kool-Aid. You obviously sell the service of being able to do this for brands, but you do it for yourself. And that is the most important, I think, resume piece for you as you continue to build out Social Proof Agency. So
Thank you.
best of luck in 2024. We look forward to staying in touch. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.